impala in Kruger Park is not that God has it in for the impala, and not that God somehow, no, he created a certain psychological reality and necessity. It's called a food chain, okay? And therefore, naturally, whatever tendencies were put in sheshis and maybe rashis when God put in the realities, that's how he set it up. Whether this impala or that impala, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's get that straight. Or with antelope, whatever you guys call it. Okay, no, it doesn't matter. That's not what God's interested in. He's really not interested in cats, dogs, animals. The only thing he's interested in is Homo sapiens. That's Das Rambam, Ramban, etc. So yes, is physics deterministic? Yes. You throw things up, they're gonna come down. That is a achlata. That determination that you won't change. Okay. It was the Ratzon Elyon, the Sheish and Mebereshis, that whatever happens will continue happening in the way it was set in the beginning. Kamosha Amar, as the pasuk says, Masha ya hu sheyeh, u'masha naseh hu sheyasa, ve'en kol chadash tachas hashemesh. You think it means there's nothing new in the world? There's a lot of new things in the world when it comes to man. When it comes to the laws of nature, so the Rambam, when we talk the laws of physics, science, etc., nothing will change. He's really limited that pasuk, taking it away from a lot of drushes. Okay? Enkel Chodesh Tachas Hashemesh means in the realm of sciences. The fikach therefore shchuch chachamim lomar b'chol hanisim Hashem yichutz lateva, and because of the aforementioned reality, the pasuk says that God set the laws of nature in a certain kavua, matzav kavua. Chazal were forced to say that all nisim, Hashem yichutz lateva, all miracles which l'chayra are breaking the laws of teva, shehayu v'shiyu k'fi shuftach b'hem, those nisim that were, and those nisim which God promises will be. Okay, kulam kvar kadama ratzon b'hem. I want you to know this is Shittas Rambam. There's no new Ratzon in the Anhaga of the world, even the Nisim. It was planned that the Yam will split if the Jews are in a certain situation and they were Zeichel Lakach. That was also configured It could be the Jews wouldn't have the issue. It could be the Jews wouldn't be Zeichel Lakach. But if they come to a certain situation, it's not that God now broke the teva. No, that is also part of the teva. Misheshim mebereshis. V'nitin bateva oisin advarim. Oy she is chadish bahem mashin is chadish. V'kasher is chadish b'zman ra'ui chashru b'yishu davar ira ata. People think it happens now. Ve'ena davar came. That's not the truth. The Chazal discussed this a lot on that pasuk of Masha Hoya Ushi. Now the Maisa, this is a Rambam in the Pirsha Mishnah to Avis. I'd like to see it if you don't mind. I sent it to you about 5 minutes ago, and that is the famous Mishnah in Perik A Mishnah Hey when it says Asora Dvorim Nivru Ben Hashmashos. Pia Oretz, that's the one we know about just now from Pashas Kairach. Pia Be'er, that's what we have coming up in the end of Bamidbar. Pia Osain, well, we're going to have that soon. Hakeshes, that we had already. Haman, Hamate, that miraculous mate which changes the nature. Shamir, this miraculous worm which cuts stone. Haksav v'amichtam, this is a machlekes. What it means, it basically means the idea of a supernatural phenomenon in this world, of having a ksav in the luchais, which doesn't make sense. You have there the martial letters which you need to have, which they can't look the same from both sides. It's impossible. Or for example, how exactly does it stand there? So the Gemara says, "There's b'nei so you." So that's is very nice. That nice is nikva misheshis and mebereshis. V'yesh emrim afa mazikim ukfrasa shemosha ve'elo shel Avram v'yesh emrim atzvas b'tzvas asuya. So what does the Rambam say? What this means? So you look in that thing that I just sent you on the right column, Mishnah Hey. Kvar hiskati l'cha b'perik hashmini. I already mentioned to you. This is what's being learned now with us in the 8th perik of the Agdama. She'inam savrin. Chazal do not think sheyesh chidush ratzon b'chol eis ve'etz. There's no new Ratzon of Kadosh Baruch Hu, even of Nisim, in every point of time. It's not that God decided to change the laws of nature when the Jews encountered Yamsuf. When the water was originally created, and then there was going to be times with water. So there's a relationship between Yabasha and Mayim. Everything was configured. This is, you understand, I hope. And this is L'chorah Davar Pasha, specifically those who learn Ramban, where he discusses this. For example, the fact that the pasuk says that if we behave in Eretz Yisrael, we get rain. We don't behave in Eretz Yisrael, we don't get rain. Do you think that every time rain comes in Eretz Yisrael, taking into account my mitzvahs, my verses, a ness of this point of time? No. When rain was created, God configured in it that it is totally in many factors, whatever rain is totally in. One of the factors is schar v'einish. That's a factor that a scientist will not know, but a metaphysicist will know. And that was also configured. So he doesn't have to decide now there's going to be a rain, just as you understand that certain physical realities are deciding whether there will or will not be rain anywhere. The same part of that configuration is also maisim tovim and maisim which ain't tovim. It's as simple as that. If there will be Dever or Rav, etc., well, we learned the Mishnayos over here in Pirkei Avos. For different Averos, different things happen. Read the Pasuk in Chumash. Then you'll have rain and you'll have peace. And if not, you're going to have war, etc. So you have to understand what was configured, Misheshim Bereshis, that specifically in Eretz Yisrael, if we don't behave, we are going to have Milchama and Tzoros, and we're going to have Golus and everything else. This is not the Chiddush HaRatzon, that Lechatchilu, any Shinui in Teva was configured, Misheshis and Bereshis. So this is what he says. So you want to understand, he continues further and he says, Bein Shoi Zot Rambam, again, I'm reading a little further, right after the underlined sentences, Bein Shoya Oisei Adavar Nasa B'Reiv Azmanim, whether this is something which occurs quite often. Example, V'hu Davar TV, rain. It clearly happens quite often, and that's what you call natural. Or Shoya Ba'Akrai, or this is haphazard, really does not happen often, like Kriyas Yamsuf or Pia Hosain. V'hu Maifis, and this is a Maifis. What does Maifis mean? Maifis means a sign. Ot umofet. Umofet means a conclusive proof. That's what it means. The word Maifis means proof. Proof of what? Proof of the fact that reality depends on the will of God. That's what's called a Maifis. What do you think a Nes means? Nes means a standard, a banner. The Lashon Nasati Neslis Noseis. I let my banner flutter. When a nes, when a supernatural phenomenon occurs, we become aware that there's a creator which controls reality. Maifis means to say it's a conclusive proof to those who think. Okay? So if something happens haphazardly, which destroys the laws of physics, this is a mofet. On the sixth day of creation, Nitan Ba'aretz, Shetishka B'Koyach V'Adosai. It was configured in Oretz at the Makim Patish of the Bria. In Yom HaShishi, before Ben Hashmoshes, that's when God said, listen, I want to add to the laws of physics the laws of metaphysics, which will include such a reality of Kairach, should it occur. Uba-be'er, shetaytzieh samayim, uba-asan, shetitaber, should it occur, because once again, all these people had bechira, it didn't have to happen. But if it did, if it would happen, this has already been configured. V'chein hashar, and this is Shittas HaRambam. Okay, I want to go a little further. Ksav hu ha'Torah ksuva lefonav yisalik m'shomer ve'en anachnu yodim heich. Ksav means the Torah the way it's written in Olam Ha'alyon. As the Ramban writes in the Akdama, so to speak, there's a Sefer Torah there, which is Eish Shechaira al Gaba Eish Levana. You look up the Akdama of the Ramban. So obviously it's a metaphor. There's no fire up there, and there's no black fire or white fire. It's a metaphor of something. And Rambam simply says very beautifully, I don't even know what it is. He doesn't say it's a bechina of something, the way other people have a habit of saying. He's very blunt, says, I don't know what it is, but I know it represents something beyond my comprehension. It was written already. That's already the Ramban. It says in the first, the Torah dictated to Moshe. Moshe was dictated from a script which was written in front of him. There is something up there called Eish Shechayra al Gabe Eish Levon. I really hope you look up the Hagdama of the Ramban al Torah, which elaborates on this. Michtav hu aksav asher aluchot k'moshe ne'emar v'michtav michtav Elokimu. The writing, the script, is the script of God. V'shema tamah im kol hamoftim nitnu b'teva otam advarim mishes mei bereishis madu yichdu ela asara. So now he has a question. If this is basically to tell me a principle that all changes of nature, which occur due to the necessities of the merit or the debit of man, so everything is that way. Why did the Mishnah point out 10 things? There's so many other things that happen. What about Neres Chanukah? I don't know. What about the fact Shalehi Pila Isha Mireya Chabasar? What about the fact that the Amuda Anan that of the Eish Maracha never was swerved even during the wind? The Gemara said there were so many nisim even during Bayis Sheni. So what do we say? Da Shelo Yichdum. They were not set aside specified. They were not there to underline it's only these which were pre-programmed and pre-configured into Bria, but others were not. No, that's not the reason. These actually only occurred as the Makim Patish, as the last minute of Yemei HaAsiyah, Yom HaShishi Ben HaShmoshes. V'shara Maifsim, when were the other ones configured? Nitim b'teva advam shenasu by be'esas yosi b'atchilasai. Other things were configured when you made Aish. You configured Aish. You figured there's going to be Aish which will not burn Avram Avinu in the Kipshon, and there'll be an Aish which will not burn the three princes of Judea in the times of Nebuchadnezzar. And so far and so forth. And the lions will not bite into the Nile, and whatever it only be. All these were configured when God made them at the time. These specific ones are only Yom HaShishi Ben HaShmoshes. Why and what, I don't think the Rambam explained, but let's go further. Rambam continues, I'll give you an example. B'Yom HaSheni, on Monday, the second day, when God separated the waters, that's what he did. Then it was configured that Yamsuf will Moshe if certain things occur. By Yarden Yoshua, if you know you're Nach, to say Yeshua, it's much smaller than this. The Kohen put their feet into the Jordan and it split. Okay? Eliyahu, Elisha, and so on and so forth. Elisha, there's so many different nisim. What are you going to describe? Everything. That's number one. Ubiyam haravi be'esh nivra hashemesh. So what did we say? Nitn b'shetamid bizman plaini b'dvar Yeshua eleh. When he said shemesh b'givon daim, yes, in a certain reality, with certain amount of schuyas and tzrachim, it will stop. It will stand. That's shemesh b'givon daim b'yarech b'emek ayalon. V'chein shara ma'ifsim. El she'ela asora nitnu b'tivei oisim advarim bein hashmashos. And that's what the Rambam sheet is. So the Chal is a big thing. Tasa Rambam, this is quite muskam. All the nisim we know are not nisim chudoshim because God does not do that. In other words, it's a big yesod. God does not change teva. The nisim are part of teva. This is the idea behind that famous Ramban, when the Ramban talks at the end of Parshas Boy, with the Ramban, which is misconstrued endlessly because people don't once again, we spoke today in Shir, that language must be understood in context. People would read that Ramban carefully and read the parallel Rambans in different places, they wouldn't make the mistake. What the Ramban says over there is nothing which is not the will of God. And we call them miracles. What's a miracle? They all tell us that it's God. There's nothing that happens without him. Whether it's Nisim Nistorim or Nisim Gluyim. What's this Nisim Nistorim mean? Things which we're used to. That's what the Rambam calls in the beginning. They're Maaseh Hashem, but they were used to them because they happen constantly. That's the first things he said over there. And the Nisim Gluyim means those Nisim which occur, or what he calls maifsim, but they also did not happen then. They've also been reconfigured in the Bria from the very beginning. So the reality is, yes, everything is Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and everything is a nace. When I say nace, it doesn't mean supernatural. No, God creates the natural. But everything is natural. You think B'chiras Yamsuf is not natural? Just as the laws of gravity were configured, also the Avnei al Gabish that fell down in times of Yeshua were configured. So why would you call one natural and one other supernatural Bishlema if the God made B'chiras Yamsuf and broke the laws of physics? Bingo. He didn't break it. It was reconfigured originally. This would happen. So call this a law too. The only difference is you call a law if it's repetitive and you know it. But if you would have seen the configuration of Yam from the very beginning, if you were privy to what it really looks like in its shirish, you would know from the first day that there is such a reality that people need in a certain situation. This will split. So essentially, there's no difference, literally, between a Nes and what you would call Teva, except for one thing. This year, when you say Teva, you're willing to almost forget that it's Maaseh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're willing to say it's a normal reality. What do you mean by normal? I'm willing to relate that without a creator. Why? Because I'm used to it. But anything which I'm not used to, obviously it's crazy. It must be there's a creator. Well, these are actually not logical statements. Why do you think for 1 minute there's a law of science? Because for the last 5,000 years it happened. It doesn't say it'll happen tomorrow. I point this out multitude of times, but we're dealing with the laws of statistics. And we're going to take for granted, if you're a man of the modern world, that for all I know, the world is a few billion years old. Then 5,000 years of recorded human experience of a few billion years doesn't create a statistic. It doesn't even create a chazaka. It's less than a drop in a bucket. So why would anybody call anything a law of science? All you know that for 5,000 years, there's a reality called gravity. How do you know it's there for a few million years? The only reason you decided because it makes it easier to live that way. Because if we don't believe it's going to happen tomorrow, we'll go nuts. And we'll start praying all day. And man does not want to pray all day. Man doesn't want to live in comfort and not having to ask. So he takes for granted it happened, it will happen, right? And it's the truth. Because when it says Shita Alpha Shana Boya Alma, it means to say that God created the laws of science and they fit for whatever Shita Alpha Shana is. What happens later, I don't know. But in other words, so now once you understand that the laws of science are nothing more than an accumulation of man's experience with repetitive reality, why are you so smug that's going to continue further unless you believe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu? And the Kadosh Baruch Hu says it will. Otherwise, what is it? See, if you believe the world is only 5,780 years old, well, look, as much as it exists, I have recorded information. So, hey, I get 100% statistic. But if you're a man of the broader reality, okay, you're willing to accept that the Torah doesn't say dates, and you're willing to say the word's a few billion years old. I don't know how long it took for it to happen. The Ramban allows a possibility that the 7 days of Bereshis are parallel to the 7 spheres. And they're not really days. That's what the Ramban says. So now how many days were there? When it says Yom Echad, it's not the same Yom that we're talking about. My day is a revolving of the earth around its axis, which is around the sun. And the day is a 24 period when the globe goes back to its original point, front facing the sun. That's called sunrise. That's very nice when we were revolving around the sun, but for the first 3 days, there was no sun. So obviously the concept, whatever caused light or the opposite of light had nothing to do with the globe revolving around its axis. God chose to put up the lights. I don't know what it was. Maybe he shined his whatever the metaphysics are, he created a reality called light and he shut it off after X amount of time. Okay. There was no natural source of light, so there's no reason to think that the day has to do anything with a revolving of 24 hours. That is only true in the relationship between the globe revolving on its own axis at a given speed, and there's the sun on the other side next to it. You don't even know if the earth revolved at the speed it does now. You don't know that either. It's unbelievable. All these things are non-known. So to take for granted that those days are 24 hours really is baseless. The only thing is, if Divrei Torah Koloshim Bnei Adam, so we figured, well, if unless you have to say otherwise, say it was 24 hours. It could be, but it does not have to be, because the Ram already explained that Divrei Torah Koloshim Bnei Adam does not mean that's the truth. Ram already says, we learned this in our Moreh Nevuchim Shir, it means to say that God wants to talk a language which even the non-academic Girgashi farmer, which knows nothing, will also be able to somehow understand a metaphoric understanding of the Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Although he'll have something totally off charts. He'll think that God has a nose, a mouth, and a stomach, which if you believe in that, you're a kaifer. And the Torah writes it that way because he wants the little nincompoop to at least understand originally something like that. Hopefully he will grow up and understand it's a metaphor for something. So if we're going to use the language of Divrei Torah Koloshim Bnei Adam to explain the time of Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, it's an invitation to say, but when you grow up, understand it's something else. There's no difference between the Tziyurei Haguf of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, found in the Mikra, which the Rambam excuses because of Divrei Torah Koloshim Bnei Adam. This is the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim, which I taught once in Moreh Nevuchim class. Well, if that's the case, and then he explains it's for the beginner to at least get a handle of things before he grows up and understands their metaphoric meaning. Well, the same thing will apply to Yom Echad, Yom Sheni. There's no, because it's not a natural, there's no reason to say it's 24 hours. And once that's true, you have no reason to say that anything else than 7 days were 24 hours either. The only time when you have to start thinking of days as 24 hours, logically, is from Yetziras Adam. Because then we're talking about the days understood by man, then I know it had to be that way. But I don't know more than that's the honest truth. So I'm saying the way it is. Therefore, as far as this is an argument which Baruch Hashem I was zeichet to see by one of the Gdolei Talmidim of the Chazon Ish, Rabbi Gedalia Nadel, Zechet Tzaddik Livracha. He actually writes this and elaborates on this, and it's a very important nakuda. I'm very happy that it was finally printed. It was actually a book which was censored because in Daybreak they didn't want this to come out. So Rav Shilat was a Talmud of his, so he printed it in a pirated fashion on PDF online. Actually, I actually have it. I don't usually distribute it to young people. Okay, very, very creative and profound pirush on the parshas of Bereshis and Noach. Okay, Baruch Hashem, a lot of maskonos which I had, I feel much more comfortable now because Rabbi Gedalia writes them. I want you to know who Rabbi Gedalia was. Rabbi Chaim Shlita used to send all his children to learn by Rabbi Gedalia. In other words, he was like the authority that the Chazon Ish was Raman of the Rav of Kaila and Shikun Chazon Ish. That's who I'm talking about. Okay, this is not some kind of I don't know what this is. Not a this is like the real thing, the real McCoy. Okay, so I say this because I don't want people afterwards to say, what do you mean? It says in the book that Chazal, whatever it be, do me a favor, Hakdish Ketchainik. The people who think that also think when God said Nasa Adam, he went into a sand lot and he put together some sand like my children did, made a form of a person, blew into it, and out came man. Well, if you read the Chumash that way, that means you're still in pre-kindergarten, okay? It's obviously a metaphor. How else do you think that Earth became into human tissue? For goodness sakes, they don't have the same molecular structure. I understand there are people, they look like a piece of dirt, but that's not, Ofer Atavel, Ofer Toshuv, Bora Kula Alma, please explain, okay? You have to understand it's a bias b'kutchet. There was some kind of evolutionary process which the Torah doesn't tell you. He's not interested in telling you. Nothing to do with you. It's simple as that. This is quite a Kim Hester Dover. But to take this as a given, that's why the Ramban writes in the beginning of Bereshis when the Chazal say that the Torah should have started from a Chodesh Zel Lachem. So the Ramban explains why. Because why would he tell us the story of Ma'aseh Bereshis? We don't understand anything anyway. That's what he writes. Nothing there is literal. We understand what it is, so why say it? If you wanted to tell me that God created the world, make a sentence. God created the world. Why do I need the whole shtickle Torah of my separation? It just helps me understand that I'm an idiot fool, that I don't understand a word. So what's the use? It's like reading the Iliad and you don't speak Greek. You know, it looks like chicken script. That's all it is. You look at that and you feel totally incompetent. That's what the Ramban says. That's what Chazal meant. They should have started from Achodesh Zelachet. Chaval al Azman. That's what he's trying to say. Lo Mavini. Look at you have to learn Ramban. Ramban is the father of Jewish faith. One has to know this. So this is a klal. Why am I saying this? And therefore, Mamela, the laws of science are not even a statistic. Because yes, there's no reason not to accept the veracity. If you go to the Museum of Natural History near Central Park, go there and thrive over dinosaurs. And you don't have to tell me stories that, so to speak, they're from the worlds before. The world, Baba Mai says the world is how old it is. Who cares? I really do not know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I definitely don't think it's only 5,780 years. That's why it's very good in Aksuba. They don't write Shnas Chameshtafim Shvamot Shmonim. What do they write? Leminyan Sha'anu Moinim Poi. According to our accounting, yes, we count that way. Because if you'd write the truth and it isn't, it'd be a puzzle to get. So thank God you write Leminyan Sha'anu Moinim Poi, etc. Wherever we are. It's a very important thing to have. This will release you, allow you to enjoy fossils as I do. Not look at every fossil as a challenge to your religion. Adrab, I think it's an unbelievable embracing religion. I see Chochmas Abayra in this. It's crazy and phenomenal. Okay, the Rambam Taka writes why. So why there's certain species were extinct? Of course they're extinct because the Rambam writes in my Nevuchim. If something went extinct, that means that was Ashgacha Pratis, that the reason for its existence stopped being, and God arranged it should be destroyed. God has no ashgacha on tzemeach chai and medaber, on tzemeach and chai, daimim tzemeach and chai, unless he wants it to be extinct. Then he makes a decision. If you see the big all those guys from Spielberg's Jurassic Park, all the guys there, you see them and they're extinct. That means, yeah, God made a decision. You guys finished. Now you're destroyed. When it happened, I don't know. I really do not know and have no problem. Maybe there was an ice age. I don't know. Okay, we can go weiter. So I'm doing this for a purpose. Do not take laws. There's no reason to take laws of science as a given. There's no reason to see them as always being. They're a constant reflection of God wanting it to be, wanting the laws of science they put into place in Sheshes, maybe Rashis, to continue. That's what this is. So basically, as a believing Jew, I really believe that the laws of science started when they started and they continued. According to Rambam, it means to say that from the beginning. So I actually have a religious reason to believe that the laws of physics have not changed from the beginning. That's this Rambam. Well, if it is true that the laws of physics have not changed from the beginning of creation, then I can actually do carbon dating. Then I can actually do all the other scientific tests of aging, and I can come to a conclusion the world is X amount of years old. See, if I take for granted, as this Rambam writes, that things did not change, so he writes, look at the first in the Rambam, that all these laws of physics started for Sheshim Mebereshis and continued. And there's no chidush of the laws of science. This is the basic thinking of this Rambam. No, so according to him, how old is the world? Well, the laws of science say it's X amount of years, so the world is going to be X amount of years old. If you would have told me that he allows saying that the laws of science changed, bravo. Laws of science didn't change, the conditions of existence changed. That's where there's more pollution, there's more other things, people live less, health or whatever, that's because of certain realities. Because man is polluted, man has changed, or there could be scharva, einish, etc. There's multiple things which are configured. Which life longevity today is longer than it was 100 years ago, much less than it was 4,000 years ago. So it really depends. Here, this is the aside of this Rambam. So now we can go further. Go back to the Hagdama. And so now let's read this again. Again, I'm going to the second paragraph. to the right paragraph on the page which starts Ve'ena Davar Kain, it's underlined. This is actually explained in the Chazal on the pasuk of Enko Tchodesh Tachas Hashemesh. This is Lashon of Chazal. They say Olam Kimin Agai Oileich. Lashon of Chazal. The world goes the way it's set, implying there's a derech ha'olam and it continues. It's not that God intervening at every second. Okay, v'timseim aleim Hashem, you will find Chazal tamid constantly b'chol divrehem, anytime in all their languages. This is a Rambam which is very sensitive to the language of Chazal. Misrachkim milaniach, they're very far. They try to distance themselves to take for given. Ki haratzim b'chol davar v'davar b'chol eisveis. There's a constant rutzin every time and place. And here I have to add something. We have the pasuk Amachadish Betuvay B'chol Yom Tamid Ma'aseh V'Reishis. Ka'amar La'osei Orim Gdolim Ki L'Olam Chazon. We don't say Asa Orim Gdolim. It seems to be implying that creation is constant. And here I'm telling you, no, creation happened whenever it happened, and whatever is happening is a continuance. And the answer is very simple. One has to differentiate between yesh mi yesh and yesh mi ayin, and I will explain. Whenever you create something from a given material, and the material has certain properties and you can shape it, so once you shaped it, it's there. And if you created laws of science to say if something stays that way, it is that way, that's the nature of that material. So then now whatever you do with that material will stay in that form. But the primary material of existence of the world is nothing more than the will of God. When you want to look, what is the primary experience, will of God? Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which expressed in Dibur. Now that Ratzon is not defined by any laws. Is the Ratzon which defines, which creates the laws. So Mechadish B'Tuvei is a necessity. It must say that creation is a constant continuance of the original will. In order for the basic matter of creation, of time, of everything to exist, which is Ratzon, that Ratzon must be continuous. It's not I had once a Ratzon